Hello, chess fans. In today's video, I'll be sharing a game where I played the Danish Gambit. This exciting gambit involves white sacrificing one or two pawns to quickly develop pieces and generate attacking opportunities. The game starts with e4, e5, e takes d4, c3, d takes c3, then bishop to c4. My opponent's pawn captured another pawn on b2, and I responded by recapturing it with my bishop. My opponent develops their knight to f6. I advance my pawn to e5. My opponent moved their queen to e7, pinning my pawn on e5. I responded by playing queen to e2 to unpin it. The queen moves to b4, delivering check. I blocked the check with my bishop. The queen retreats back to e7. I captured the knight with my pawn. We exchanged queens. We exchanged a few pawns. My opponent moved their rook to g8, targeting my pawn on g2. I responded by moving my bishop to f3 to protect it. My opponent developed their bishop to h6. I moved my knight to e2. My opponent moved their knight to c6. I castled my king to safety. d6 was played. I developed my other knight to c3. Rook to g6 was played. I retreated my bishop to h4. My opponent moved their knight to e5, threatening my other bishop. I responded by moving my bishop to e4. The rook moved back to g7. I moved my bishop to g3. My opponent developed their other bishop to e6. I captured the knight on e5 with my bishop. The pawn captures my bishop. I offered a bishop trade. My opponent's bishop moved to h3. I moved my knight to g3, blocking the rook. The bishop retreats to d7. I captured the pawn on b7. The rook moved to b8, attacking my bishop. I retreated my bishop to f3. My opponent advanced the pawn to f5. I moved my knight to h5, targeting the rook. The rook moved to g8. I moved my knight to f6, forking the king, rook, bishop, and pawn. The king moved to f7, so I captured the bishop. Rook to d8 was played. I captured the pawn on e5 with check. The king moved to f6. I advanced my knight to c6. Rook to d3 was played. I moved my knight to d5, delivering check. My opponent's king moved to e6. I captured the pawn on c7 with check. The king then moved to d7. I positioned my knight on e5, forking the king and the rook. My opponent captured the knight, and I took the rook. Bishop to f3 was played. I moved my rook to c1, delivering check. The king moved to d6. I brought my other rook to d1. The king moved to e7. I advanced my knight to e5. The king then moved to f6. In this position, I overlooked a forced checkmate. Can you find it? It's rook to c6 check. If the king captures the knight on e5, I can push g3, and the king won't have any legal moves. My opponent can sacrifice the rook and bishop to delay checkmate. Rook to d5 delivers checkmate. Back to the game. I move my knight to d7, forking the king and bishop. We traded some pieces. I move my rook to d8, delivering check, and then we exchanged rooks. I moved my other rook to the 7th rank to block the king. I captured my opponent's remaining pawns. I advanced my pawns. I delivered checkmate by moving my rook to a8. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate your support. Don't forget to subscribe and tap that notification bell so you can stay updated with all our latest content.